In today's video, Dog Squad, we are going to be grading every team season from 2025 in the NFL. We are now here with the off-season videos. It's really a pleasure to be doing all those videos this year for the NFL season. I enjoy doing the Cowboys previews, the NFL weekly predictions. I also enjoyed posting during the week. We'll have that as well. Maybe not as often because of the NFL. Season not being in, but I love doing those. Love doing the power rankings on the post. Loved, giving also game recaps, doing the live streams for the Cowboys when I could. Loved doing NFL videos more whenever I was in breaks. They were great. Loved covering the NFL this year, and I'm excited to even do it more next season. Now, I will also let you know how much that will be with college. We'll see how busy I am during the week if I can get those in, and then of course if I come home on the weekends, which will be about probably at least half of the time, or we'll see. I'm not going to say I'm going to come home every weekend for college. I'll just have to let you know if I'm doing videos or not. If not, you'll have to see my community post because I will be busy with college, but I'll make sure to give a good amount of videos for the NFL off-season and on-season, especially during the breaks. This weekend in this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so notice one of my videos. We're on the road to 2K subs, so let's try to get that. March Madness also is not too long away. Our first March Madness video probably will be trying to do, I'll probably do what I did a couple years ago where I give like the final few minutes of each conference tournament championship game. That will probably be something I'll probably do, and as well we'll have March Madness breakdown videos and the predictions. Unlike last time, we didn't have that because I was sick. I was planning on making it Wednesday last year, but I got sick. But this year, I'll probably make it earlier. So it may be because I usually spend a few days preparing my bracket. But make sure to also subscribe to the TreyDOGaming channel and more gaming videos throughout until all the way up to August for our third year on TreyDOGaming. Now, without further ado, let's get right into this video, Dog Squad. Squad, here we are. We're going to start off with the Arizona Cardinals. They didn't have very good of a season. They couldn't figure anything out. They only have 3 wins. You have to put them on the F tier. Last year was better. They don't have John again, which we will go over all the head coaching signings and all that eventually. I was kind of focusing on the playoffs the past few weeks, and of course we'll have more Cowboys videos as well, more on the reports. It's been more on the playoffs the past few weeks, like I said. But the Cardinals, they had a rough go. Kyler, did he really even play this year? I don't think he did. Brissett to come in. They only won 1 game with them, and that sadly I was sitting here and watching the game on the live stream for the Cowboys when that happened. They beat the Cowboys with Jacoby Brissett because our defense let him have one of his best games of the year. And he honestly wasn't too bad. Some people say it's been garbage time, or some people have also just been saying he wasn't too bad. So I don't think he was, honestly. I think, I've seen him play, and it wasn't all in garbage time, so don't even try to start with that. The Cardinals couldn't get anything figured out. Their defense was actually not terrible this year, so they have some improvement this year to be filled. We'll talk about that. We'll preview all that later in the year. But the Cardinals, they had a rough go. They're going to have to figure things out if they want to get going. They're going to have to develop some stuff. They're going to have to probably try for a quarterback because Kyler, you can't trust Kyler, dude. He gets hurt way too much, and that's even if he gets hurt. I don't even know if he wants to play anymore. Probably just wants to go play on Call of Duty all the time. But James Conner keeps getting hurt. He's pretty underrated when he's actually playing. They have Trey McBride. He's obviously top 3 tight end, probably the number 1 tight end in the league right now, which that's debatable. But he's definitely one of the best, if not the best, tight ends in the league. Marvin Harrison, they've got to get involved more. So they can fix some stuff. They can actually be a pretty solid team, and maybe do some stuff. But moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, I'm gonna have them as a C season here. They didn't make the playoffs. They went 9-8, came back at the end. They tried. Penix got hurt. He was playing for about half of the year, then he stopped because he got hurt with I think it was either Achilles or ACL. But I think, this team, they don't have Raheem Morris anymore, so their defense probably still could be good. Now, they do have Jeff Ulbrich and all that still, but, they definitely are going to have to figure out what the quarterback situation is like. Bijan, obviously, is one of the best running backs in the league. Drake London's really good. They have offensive talent. They've got some pretty good talent. Their defense is actually pretty talented, so they've got some good players. They had 2 defensive rookie of the year candidates this year, so they got quite a bit of a squad. They didn't have good enough of a coach. So if they can, this year, coming in with a new head coach, that'll be fine. We'll just see what goes on with Atlanta this upcoming year. But right now, they're going to give them a C season. Same with Baltimore. You don't have John Harbaugh anymore. So that's going to be interesting. You now have the Charger defense coordinator. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do with Lamar and all that. But he'll be controlling the defense. Made that defense watch you look back like I did with Mike McDonald. So that's going to be interesting to see. But this team had trouble. Lamar got hurt. Derek had some fumbling issues, so he wasn't the same. But he came back later in the year. They kind of need some better. Even though Zay Flowers put up over 1,000 yards, I think they still need some better receivers overall with that group. You can't just rely on Zay Flowers. Meanwhile, on that defensive side, they got to stay healthy. Of course, with the new head coach, new defensive mind coming in, there might be some better ways of how that defense is going to run. But the Ravens, I definitely can see having a better year. They were an extra made field goal away from making the playoffs, but as in a weak division. So I do think the Ravens have a better year, but this was a C year for them, and we don't see many out of the Ravens. Usually it's a pretty much of an A year. Buffalo, I have to put them in the B range this year. I know usually they're in the A's. They did make the divisional round, but they were also the 6th seed, and they had their flaws. Their offense wasn't as clicking before. You didn't really have anybody to throw the ball to as like you want. I mean, Kincaid was good, Shakir was good, but they're not top talent like you did with Diggs. They're not. I mean, they're not. I mean, Keon Coleman wasn't, he's probably one of the biggest busts of the year in terms of fantasy football, and of course, just production out in the field. I mean, their defense had some pretty good moments and all that. Now you're firing Sean McDermott, so. You made the 6th seed. You had some good talent. Josh Allen did a lot of good stuff for you. He wasn't MVP, obviously. Well, I mean, he still was an MVP candidate, but I mean, I still don't. I think you could have probably put Dak in over Allen. Probably put Dak in over Lawrence. We'll talk about that in just a moment when we get to Dallas. But that was still probably a B+ year for Buffalo. Wasn't their best year, but that was still a pretty solid year for them. They don't have McDermott, so now you're gonna have to figure out what to do this year with a new culture, and so Buffalo takes that one. With a B year. All right, Carolina's a C year. They went 8-9. That's a better year for Carolina. Dave Canales is doing much better with this Carolina team compared to what it was just about 2 years ago, which was nasty when Bryce Young was rookie year. He had no help, but now you got Ted McMillan, who won the Offensive Rookie of the Year. You got a pretty much more improved defense. So, I mean, they've got one of the best DB rooms in the league. So this is going to be a much more improved team, especially as Bryce gets there. Especially with the Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle duo. If they re-sign Dowdle, I mean that's going to be something. This Panthers team definitely has the talent to do stuff. But in 8-9 was just one of those years. It's just going to be a start. They were inconsistent. I think Bryce was a little bit too much inconsistent, and they were more of a home team. And then they had trouble on the road. They beat some good teams, and then lost to some bad teams. Kind of how the Carolina Panthers were, and that's why. They had a losing record this year and lost. They had a good fight in the playoffs, just wasn't enough to beat the LA Rams. So that's a C season for them. The Chicago Bears, you got to give them the A year. I mean, they had a good year. They had a much productive talent on the offensive side. They got the 2 seed in the NFC. They won their division. Their defense was, I think inconsistent. But hey, they've had some rough times on defense before. I think they've also had a better defensive year before. But I think this one was still a competitive defense that got them through stuff, especially when offense was struggling. Like what they did against Green Bay, and they did against, actually twice against Green Bay, and then against some other opponents like the Rams, they had a shot because of that defense. The offense, they were much better with Caleb Williams this year. He had a second year that he just needed that O-line, and that dang right he got it fixed. Probably one of the best this year for Chicago, actually, from going one of the worst to one of the best. And this receiver room with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Luther Burden, and then Cole Kmet, Colton Love. They got some pretty good dang receivers. Rome Odunze fell off. I think that's got injured. DeAndre Swift probably had a pretty dang good year. So that was great for Ben Johnson and the Bears and the Bears. Ben Johnson did a great job with the Chicago team. Moving on for Cincinnati, I mean, yeah, your offense was struggling. You didn't have your quarterback till later. I mean, and then your defense was what? I mean, your offense had some good games, but they were high power, but then they weren't. And then the defense was obviously just another bad year for them. Just the D year for Cincinnati, you know, you got eliminated earlier than you probably should have. They had it, you know, they kind of tried, I think, a little bit at the end to come back, but they couldn't. And Cincinnati does end up, I'm going to grade them as a D. They're going to, you know, the good years they had of making the playoffs and then making the, you know, AFC Championship game with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I mean, that offense has too many weapons to just sit there and, you know, not have a good year. And, you know, and there could be coaching issue with Zach Taylor and all that, and there could be just defensive issues like, you know, with Dallas. But, you know, it is what it is with Cincinnati. They're going to have to get that fixed if they want to make another playoff run. But there was not a good year for Cincinnati. Give me a D. Cleveland, we know, is going to be an F. Cleveland, they had trouble figuring out what their quarterback situation was going to be like. You know, they went through from Joe Flacco to then Dylan Gabriel and then Shadur Sanders and freaking Deshaun Watson still under that freaking heavy contract. I think this might be it for him this year. I'm not completely sure. I'll look into that though. But they, you know, their defense was amazing. They had 2 awards players, you know, with the defensive rookie of the year and then defensive player of the year. So their defense is pretty good, but their offense is just not. And then their defense isn't like good enough, I think, to be like. What I mean is their offense, I think, wears them out so much, and that's what you lose as your games. That's why they didn't win that many games this year. You know, so you know, I think if you can get some better offensive guys, you don't really have any weapons. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, he had like no receivers this year. You know, you're running back with Quinshon Judkins, that's at least a plus there. You see if you can improve Shadur, I think he'd be fine. I think next year, I think your Browns, maybe the Browns could maybe have another, maybe an 8-9 season, like maybe pull the Panthers like they did this year. Who knows? I think that Browns have had a bad year. You know, obviously, I think we all know that they look terrible this year, but you know they have a new head coach now, the Ravens OC. So we'll see what goes on with them. All right, Dallas C-year. I think it was a mid-year for them. You know. They had a really talented offense with Dak and CD and Pickens and, you know, Javonte, a pretty solid top 10, I'd say, running back this year. You know, Jake Ferguson had a pretty good season. This O-line could have been better, but hey, they did. I think they did a good amount of stuff. This defense was bad. We all know that. They let up most points in franchise history, most points this year out of any team, over 500. The D-line was actually pretty, you know, okay. I think they actually had some dominant, you know, sparks in there. I think we can get some secondary help. I think he'll be fine, you know. The Cowboys had a really good offense, which had some red zone issues, yes. They had, later in the year, they had some second half issues, but I think also that falls with the defense as well for not really helping them out that much. And, you know, having to force it downfield and, you know, knowing you had to do that and all that stuff, and you also had to go up against good defenses as well later in the year. So, you know, like the Vikings and the Chargers, yeah, and you know, so that's what kind of works. So, you know, there was a little bit of fall. You know, there was a defense kind of just made it even worse. They didn't get better, and the offense had great first halves. They kind of fell a little bit in the second half. I think some coaching. I think as Shoddy gets a little bit more used to this play calling, I think he'll be fine. I think those are some adjustments he needed to make, and I don't think he made them. Of course, there was some issues, like I said, with the defense itself. So, you know, I think there would have been better things. I think the Commanders game, we got a little too conservative, trying to, you know, run down the clock because we held the ball on for a long time. And you know, the Vikings game, I think you didn't really give us many choices. You kind of had to air it out. You know, eventually when the defense, you know, you had to go for it, and it just, I think there was some also issues with that. And well, you know, I think there could have been better things, but it is what it is. Shoddy will learn from the stuff. We'll learn as an offense, and also the O-line also struggled in those last games. So I think there were some struggles there. But hey, I mean, if you put up certain amount of points like 26 and 30, you should be able to win those games. I don't care how you do it. You put up those many points, you should win games. I don't care. But and as sports, I think give you a better defense. That'll prevent you. I think you'll score more still, and you'll be able to still hold these up. Sorry, I'll talk more about Dallas when we're over by Dallas. But I think with more improvement this year from next year from the defense, and of course if this offense keeps being good with some more adjustments, I think this team can be pretty good next year. No, I'm not going to say it's our year or something like that. I'm not that type of person. I don't even think that thing exists. Usually I just hear fans say it. Dallas is C year. Broncos, A year, obviously. You know, I think their offense was pretty solid, but their defense was dangerous. Bo Nix had a pretty good second year. I think there was some inconsistency showing from him, but he had a much better year, I think. Leading the Broncos to the 1 seed in the playoffs with that really good defense, having a great playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, one of the best passing defenses this year. And and Denver, he sadly got hurt, and they couldn't do anything in the AFC Championship. So that's controversial. Would he have done some if he's playing or not? Who knows if that would have been the case. It was also snowing, so who knows if it would have been a better game if it wasn't snowing. So I guess we have a lot of things to say. Denver does have an A year. Detroit. They didn't make the playoffs. They went 9-8. They had a struggling defense, and they had a pretty good offense. So, to mark them, I'm gonna give them a C+ here. I do think they had a great start, but then they started to collapse later in the year, and I really think that hurt them and kind of turned them into a C. Probably very top, one of the best C teams this year in terms of grading. Detroit had, like I said, a talented offense, but they had their own issues with some games. They weren't consistent enough, but it was mostly their defense allowing too many points. I think that last game against the Vikings and game against the Bears, I think was more on the offense having some trouble than the defense. I think they were just not consistent enough, and maybe the coordinators were the right things for them. Maybe those, maybe Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn needed to be on their team, and Dan Campbell, who is, obviously going 9-8, that's great for the Lions. But if you wanted to become the same Lions team, you had to have better performances, and I think there was some coaching errors and all that. But I think they'll be turning out better next year with they'll probably a better season. That's a C year, I think, for the top of the C still. Green Bay, I think they have the B year. They made the 7th seed in the playoffs. They snuck in. They fell off a little bit later in the year. The only reason I think I give them the B is because they made the playoffs, and Jordan Love had a pretty dang good season as well. Their offense has some talented issues. I think Matt LaFleur has still the right to still be the Green Bay Packers coach. Their defense was great, but now the defense coordinator's in Miami. We'll see what he does there. But, they had a pretty well-rounded team, but they just couldn't finish it off later in the year, and they had some injuries. Green Bay does finish off the B in terms of grading. Houston, I think they're a B year as well. Their offense was struggling, but they was able to keep them in games with C.J. Stroud. Their defense was amazing. It was one of the best scoring defenses in the league this year. They were able to have some good playoff moments. They had 2 turnovers for touchdowns against the Steelers, and then they also forced Drake May with 3 turnovers in that game, 5 fumbles, 2 of them, like I said, 3 of them were recovered, something like that. So that was great for the Texans this year. They came back from a 3-5 to a 12-5. What a year for the Houston Texans, and if they can get their offense and maybe C.J. Stroud can improve, they'll have a shot of doing some stuff next season as well, and maybe they can finally get over to the AFC Championship and get over that hump. The Indianapolis Colts, if we were sitting here and they were still consistent, they had probably A and could have easily maybe won the Super Bowl the way they were playing, but they are a C. If I told you that, if you saw this video back in week 6, you'd be like, whoa, do you hate the Colts or something? I'd be like, well, you got to watch the whole season. They collapsed, it was terrible. Daniel Jones got hurt. Jonathan Taylor, they couldn't protect him as much. He wasn't playing at the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year type level. Their defense wasn't as good anymore, so it just kind of fell apart. The Colts really they collapsed. It's sad. I just don't think they had enough stamina in them. It's sad to see that, Phillip Rivers tried coming in and saving the day, but didn't work out in the season for the Colts. But hey, better than last year, is that right? Jaguars. I give them an A year. They had a great record. Trevor Lawrence in the MVP conversation. He also, I think, became 3rd, I believe, in votes. So great for Trevor Lawrence. Their defense was also a great unit. That was able to make great plays in this one. Travis Etienne had a great year. They didn't use Brian Thomas that much. Travis Hunter got hurt, so they had some trouble doing that. They used Jacoby Myers later in the year, but I think there's a lot more of what he had. Parker Washington, I don't think he had the best talent. I'm not going to lie. The Jaguars. But, if they can use that talent next year and, stay with the same stamina and all that, I think the Jaguars can have another great year. But that was an A year, great year for the Jags. I think it's better than that. Chiefs. You can't go 6-11 and expect to put you in a C. They had a D year. They had a bad start, They had then they had like 4 or 5 wins, and then they kind of collapsed after the win against the Colts. They haven't won since they beat the Colts, and I think, honestly, that Colts-Chiefs game really just started to collapse from both teams. They didn't really win a game, I think, after. I mean, the Colts, I think, maybe won a game. I don't think they won a game after that Chiefs win, and then the Chiefs beat the Colts, and then they never won a game after that. They looked actually still pretty good after they beat the Colts, and then they turned around and beat the Cowboys. We beat them, on Thanksgiving, and then I think after that there were some teams that were starting to like the Chiefs, Cowboys, and Colts didn't win as many games after that. Couldn't find themselves, and the Chiefs 6-11 and losing to the Raiders. That's not like the Chiefs, but they also got hurt. Patrick Mahomes got hurt and all that, and that just kind of collapsed. And Chiefs, though, D-year, and sad for them, but hey, they had to have it eventually. Raiders, obviously an F year. I mean, they're going to get the number 1 pick. What else is there to say? Geno Smith, he didn't have a good year. He had a terrible year, but you were also on the Raiders. We expect Pete Carroll had trouble organizing this team for the Raiders, and Max Crosby needs to be on another team if he wants to have any success, maybe win a Super Bowl, because he's too good for that team. Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, they had pretty good years as well. They just need some overall time. I think they get Mendoza. They need to. Now you have Klubnik from the Seattle Seahawks OC, so you can maybe have that Seattle offense better, or that Las Vegas offense better, and then maybe the defense can get some better. They were below average on defensive side, so we'll see what goes on with them. But they had a terrible year, couldn't really win many games, and got blown out. And Geno Smith led the league in picks. What do you want me to say? Chargers, B year. The offense, I think, had a struggling moments. They had a terrible O-line, one of the worst in the league. Justin Herbert had a broken hand, but he was able to deal with it until playoff time. But I think I blame that more on the O-line. And you couldn't really find anyone. You had some pretty good receivers out there with Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen. The defense was amazing. We'll just question to see how they do next year without their defensive coordinator. But they still got great guys on that defensive unit that can perform it for another good defense. The Chargers, though, B year, made 7th seed. Nope, another just one and done for the LA Chargers. What am I going to say as a Cowboys fan? I mean, that's kind of what we do as well. Though we have one playoff game before then, so I want people to not forget that. Rams, A year, of course. I mean, Matthew Stafford won MVP. This offense and defense were tremendous. Defense kind of fell off a little bit later in the year, but then they kind of had a little bit more momentum in the divisional round game, and then so all of that really. The Rams were a very good team this year. Their offense, like I said, was pretty dang good. They had the number 1 scoring offense this year. And they showed it in the NFC Championship game. And they showed it against Carolina. And, with Puka Nacua being an Offensive Player of the Year candidate, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, one of the, most, not iconic, but it could be maybe a future deadly duo for running backs, but they definitely are very talented. Both of them are. They've got some pretty underrated with Parkinson and Ferguson and all that with some tight ends. Defensive line's great. They had a very good year in terms of that. So, obviously it was an A year. They made the NFC Championship game. They did get the 5 seed, but that was also because of rankings in terms of divisions and all that. So, Rams do get the A rank. I grade them an A this year. Dolphins. They had some chance of the playoffs. I'm not going to mark them as an F because they had, 7 wins, but the Dolphins still, they had those 2 good years, and then that was really it for them. They haven't made the playoffs since. They've had 2 losing records. Mike McDaniel's is off the team now, and now they have the Packers DC, and, they're going to definitely, I'm about to see how their defense does. They got freaking Patillo over that past game coordinator. They won't be calling the offense, but they're going to figure out the quarterback situation because Tua is probably not going to be the starting quarterback. Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle still pretty dang good on their team. And their defense was bad. They got to fix that as well. So, and with the new guy, new head coach, defensive minded head coach coming in, you'll probably you can get the right players, probably all that. But they this year had some trouble. Finding momentum. And Mike McDaniel's, I just don't think coached as good as he was maybe previously anymore. And I think it was more of just a coordinating solution for him and this team than it was really coaching. I think he didn't have enough, fully togetherness and chemistry later those 2 years. It just didn't work out for Miami, and Tua also getting too many concussions that hurt him and all that. And it sucks for Miami. Minnesota. Excuse me. Minnesota, they came back later in the year when it didn't really matter anymore. Still going to give them a C rank because they came back and went 9-8 later in the year. And, I think J.J. McCarthy might have shown a tiny bit of spark at the end. Maybe he can do something next year. He had a tough year as it was. Their defense had to keep them in games because their offense couldn't do anything. Jay Jettis is, he's just having those years where it's like, hey, I'm very good. Oh, wait, no, I'm injured, but I'm also still good. Hey, I'm very good. This year, no, it wasn't really that. But, Jay Jettis, I think he misses with the way they traded away Sam Darnold and, I didn't really say trade away. He just didn't sign him back, and then he went to go win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. So, not like I think they should have kept him. But maybe also with that system, I don't know if it's going to work. But Kevin O'Connell, he's a good head coach. You probably had a shot. I think you honestly probably had a shot at going further if you kept him. But, that is also just me. And Aaron Jones looked like the same Aaron Jones. Of course, he did get injured and all that. But the Vikings do have a C here. New England, definitely an A year. Made the Super Bowl. They got the 2 seed. I think they, their schedule was some easier than some others. But, hey, I think they won some good solid teams this year. I just don't think they were Super Bowl ready. But, hey, they went 4-13 the past year. They didn't have good years. Give them some credit. Mike Vrabel did a great job. He deserved to win Coach of the Year. And, very good for him this year and that Patriots team as well. Josh McDaniels getting Assistant Coach of the Year. Also, I didn't go over those MVP awards, but I guess I won't now. But you can kind of tell me I'm saying this in these videos now. So Patriots, they the Super Bowl, weren't good enough to beat the Seahawks, but they did have some good talent. Drake May has a future in him. Saints, they came back later in the year. Tyler Shug showed some spark. This offense might have some goodness in themselves, some talent. Maybe Kellen Moore can turn this team around. If the defense can maybe get better a little bit. The Saints team has something. They were a C team. They looked like they'd be an F team later in the year. They had like one win at one point, and then they turned around the season. So great job from them. The Saints, they maybe have some life next year. The Giants, obviously, probably an F year for them. They didn't win many games, and they had some very good games earlier in the year when they had Scattaboo and Neighbors and Dart, and they had Russell Wilson throw all over those yards and touchdowns against our Dallas defense, which wasn't really surprising. But then again, they had trouble winning games later in the year, and they didn't really win one until a couple weeks after with the Raiders game, and then beating us in Week 18, and then putting our backups in. So, and I don't know how much we were really trying and all that. I think you just need to regroup a little bit and move on, I think, honestly. But yeah, sorry. I'm watching this George Washington games on right now. But sorry about that. This, Giants team, they actually have some talent now. Defensive-wise, they got to get that secondary together. They have one of the best defensive line units in the league, so we're going to see what they can do there in terms of next year. Now, with John Harbaugh coming in, it'll be good for the Giants. But that year, they couldn't do much. They had coaching issues, Brian Daboll leaving. That's why they have the F. Jets, obviously the F. They got to probably finally maybe a franchise quarterback because, none of those quarterbacks are going to save them with Justin Fields. I feel bad for him because he probably had a chance. I kind of forgot they were a team this year with the Jets. I don't remember watching them that much, just how bad they were. But, them and then, their defense didn't get a single takeaway. That's bad. And their offense couldn't do anything. Aaron Glenn is now apparently in the hot seat. I think if you've been another bad year, then yeah, probably there. But I think you give him one more shot. They should have probably. Honestly, now I guess they should have done that with Jerome Mayo because they got Mike Vrabel. And if maybe after Aaron Glenn, you can do that with some other guy, and he'll lead you to a Super Bowl or whatever. So, but Jets get the F grade. Eagles, a B. Offense shaky because of Kevin Patillo, and I think Jalen Hurts also have his best elevated season, but then again, it is what it is. And with Philadelphia, they can be inconsistent. Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat right now because he's very inconsistent in terms of coaching, and the defense was also very good. That kind of had to save the offense in games, and so the Eagles do get the B rank. I think if their offense was better like last year, I think they would have a better chance. But they are the B this year for Philadelphia, and we'll see what goes on this year. Hopefully they don't do anything good for next year. Steelers, they went 9-8 and won their division. I'll give them a B. If you won your division, I'm not going to probably put you in the C's. You won your division. Now, Panthers did, but they had a losing record, and of course it was the expectations for the Panthers. But Steelers went 10-7, made the playoffs as a 4 seed, had a terrible playoff game, at least for the offense, and couldn't do really anything. So that was a struggle for the Pittsburgh Steelers right there. But the question is, what will they do next year? With Mike McCarthy coming in, will they be good with Aaron? Will they bring back Aaron Rodgers? What will they do there? But they had some on and off games. They were able to get some good wins. They were able to get some, had some bad losses. They were a team of question to see. Well, hey, could they win the playoff game? They couldn't this time against Houston's big defense. But Steelers got the B rank here. Niners B. They had some injury trouble, but that didn't stop them from making the playoffs 16 and winning a playoff game, and then going to Seattle and getting their butts kicked. But hey. It could have been much worse, and I don't like the Niners as a Cowboys fan, and I said that. Kyle Shanahan did a great job with his team. Brock Purdy came back and had some good games. Defense was bad, but they also had injuries there because I think they had with Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, that hurt them a lot. And of course, when your best players go down, that's going to hurt your defense. So, and Robert Saleh did what he could with that defense, and now he's over the Titans. So we'll see what goes on with them. We'll talk about the Titans in just a second. Seahawks. Obviously the A. I'm not going to put them anywhere lower. I won't even give them an A- or regular A. They got the A+. They won the Super Bowl. They had 14 wins this year. Dominated in the divisional round and won against the Rams. Sam Darnold had a great game that time. And then the Seahawks was a lower scoring game. And then not much offensive thing, but Sam Darnold had a TD. And the defense was amazing. The dark side stroke this year. In terms, they struck again, I should say. As the Seahawks defense did, because there was a dark side. You compare that to the Legion of Boom, and this one ain't that far from it. So they had a fantastic year, top 5 in offense and defense. They were phenomenal, and their special teams was definitely top 5 as well. A well-rounded team with Mike McDonald, 8-year, and they won Super Bowl 60. Tampa Bay, they fell off bad. You gotta give them a C. Their record was, they had a great start. Looked like they could have been going to the Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield, he looked like an MVP candidate. Emeka Egbuka was a very good offensive rookie year talent and a chance at it. Their defense had some good moments. Mike Evans was hurt, and they came back. And I think Todd Bowles, he might be the best. I don't know if he's going to be the best option in Tampa. I think it's too many flaws. Really, I think you give him one more chance to see what he did this year, because he's led y'all to division titles and playoff and a playoff victory and playoff appearances. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say he's not a good coach. I just think he has too many flaws right now. So I think you say give him one more year and see what he goes on. If he turns around this a much better year, then I say keep him. It depends also what you do. But Baker also just couldn't do anything. It wasn't the same Baker. His team overall didn't have chemistry. It was just a collapse from Tampa Bay and all that. Tennessee obviously an F. Cam Ward did what he could with the talent around him, and overall their talent was terrible. Brian Callahan could do anything coaching that team, and maybe Robert Saleh can coach him. So that they were just terrible, and they had no O-line, and Cam Ward was used to that at Miami and the Hurricanes. Commanders, they had an F year as well. I mean, they didn't really win any games. They had like 4 wins this year, and everyone got hurt, and that just kind of happens. They had a very good year and kind of went back to the same Commanders. And as a Cowboys fan, I hate the Commanders now a little bit more now that they're good. That they're more positive franchise than they used to be. I'm actually sorry for them, but now they've been in the NFC Championship more before us, so we have to respect them because I wouldn't say that actually, because we still beat them about every year. We swept them again this year. But still, you can't say that they haven't done more than us before, and also they have more positives going into the next few years. So, especially with Dan Quinn as the head coach, he's done a great job with that team. But it's going to be coming down: can they stay healthy next year? And how will they get back to their old 2024 self in Washington? But that is your rankings. We take a look back at the grades. We have the A ranks: the Bears, Broncos, Jaguars, Rams, Patriots, and Seahawks. B's: the Bills, Packers, Texans, Chargers, Eagles, Steelers, and the Niners. C's: we get the Falcons, Ravens, Panthers, Cowboys, Lions, Colts, Vikings, Saints, Buccaneers. D's: the Bengals, Chiefs, and Dolphins. And the F's: the Cardinals, Browns, Raiders, Giants, Jets, Titans, and the Commanders. Those are my rankings. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. What would you do any different? What did you like about my rankings? And, explain if you want to. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. More NFL videos to come, and also more gaming videos. TreyDOGaming, make sure to go subscribe. That link is in the description below as well. Go join my Discord, and also go follow my Den Boys Reports on Instagram. Link is in the description as well. I'll see you next time, Dog Squad. Peace.